Tonight,
we see in our emergency department a lot of people in their 20s that have these chronic problems. And if someone had talked to them back when they were 14, 15, 16, maybe they wouldn't be in the emergency department with those chronic problems and would have a more productive lifestyle.
Local RCMP and youth groups raising awareness about the dangers of drugs in the community. Plus,
so I personally rushed him to the hospital because I knew our ambulance service was basically a taxi service. So I drove him there, and they were able to stabilize him again.
Concern around efficient ambulance service here in the border city. And
I can see when I go to someone's house the joy that's on their face because they know they're going to be able to give their kids something for Christmas. So
Newcap's annual Gift of Christmas campaign is underway, giving gifts to underprivileged kids.
This is Newcap News with Adam MacVicar.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. It's an issue that's prominent in communities across Canada. Dangerous drugs like fentanyl causing overdose deaths and addiction. But here in the border city, local RCMP and the Lloydminster Youth Council are trying to outline the consequences of drug use to a younger demographic.
338 Albertans have died in 2016 due to an opioid overdose. 193 of those cases involved fentanyl. In Saskatchewan, a total of 18 confirmed fentanyl deaths so far this year. Recent events prompted the Lloydminster RCMP and Youth Council to team up and host a dangerous drug awareness campaign.
And we were thinking about a way that we could make a drug awareness forum fun and something that youth would really want to come to.
Hashtag Project 180 Alert is a social media campaign and initiative to raise awareness about the dangers of drug use among youths in the community.
180 just means all about if you're going down the wrong path, turning it around and just living a positive lifestyle.
RCMP Constable Grant Kurzinger says Lloydminster is like any other city when it comes to the drug scene.
You're going to find, individuals that are using marijuana recreationally. They're using it to try and self-medicate, up to, hardcore using of fentanyl, heroin, different things like that. So every kind of drug that you can think of is something that we have here in Lloydminster, something that we're trying to deal with.
Youth in attendance also heard from Dr. Mark Chapelski. He says he would see 8 to 10 fentanyl overdose patients monthly prior to an RCMP crackdown. But when it comes to other drugs, Chapelski says he sees addicts daily.
We see in our emergency department a lot of people in their 20s that have these chronic problems. And if someone had talked to them back when they were 14, 15, 16, maybe they wouldn't be in the emergency department with those chronic problems and would have a more productive lifestyle.
A few members of the Lloydminster Bobcats also spoke, coming back from a recent trip to Vancouver's East Hastings, where they did witness a death due to an overdose.
When you see that, you realize maybe not right at the moment, but that person right there has passed away and they were no longer living because they chose to shoot up on the street.
At the end of the forum, one message was clear.
All of these drugs, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, fentanyl, other opioid drugs, all come with consequences and all come with health concerns. And no one can make a choice for them. They're young adults. They want to be independent. And the more information they have, the more knowledge they're given, the better choices they'll make.
Well, ambulance issues have been brought back to the forefront in Lloydminster, with one woman alleging her husband could have died due to the lack of efficient service. It's been a hot-button topic for years, especially with seniors who are more prone to heart attacks and other life-threatening incidents. But has concern and anger clouded the reality of the situation? Gina Martin finds out.
This is Phyllis Hunchak. Last month, her husband suffered from a heart attack while they were traveling to Vegreville. Luckily, he was able to make it to a hospital nearby and was rushed to the Royal Alex in Edmonton by ambulance with 2 paramedics on board. About a week later, back in Lloydminster, another heart attack.
So I personally rushed him to the hospital because I knew our ambulance service was basically a taxi service. So I drove him there, and they were able to stabilize him again.
But he needed to get back to Edmonton, and Phyllis says by the time paramedics were flown from Lac La Biche to Lloydminster and then drove her husband to Edmonton, it took over 5 hours.
If that heart attack that he had the first time in Vegreville had occurred in Lloydminster, he would have died because time was really of the essence at that point.
Lloydminster's ambulance service is a joint system between Alberta Health Services and the Prairie North Health Region and is operated by WPD Ambulance. This experience left Phyllis uncertain about her safety.
It makes you very angry because I'm an Alberta resident And I owned a business here for 30 years. I've lived here for 37 years. And now I'm basically being forced to leave this community. And not because I want to, but because I want to save my life.
We'll have more from the Prairie North Health Region and Alberta Health Services about this issue on our newscast tomorrow. Well, last summer, an oil spill that started near Maidstone ended up putting the city of Prince Albert on a frantic search for clean drinking water. Its mayor spoke about the findings around the cause of the incident yesterday. Global's Joel Senek has more on his reaction and what the administration has done to safeguard against a future spill.
They haven't recovered it all, and they admit that.
Prince Albert's mayor is looking for answers on last summer's oil spill in the North Saskatchewan River. He spoke Monday after Husky Energy reported the root cause to be a pipe that broke from ground movement.
One of the questions I have asked is, it was sloping of the river, that caused it to move. Well, where don't we have a problem with sloping of the river?
Mayor Greg Dion says his administration is now reviewing the findings. Last July, 225,000 liters of blended crude spilled in and around the North Saskatchewan River near Maidstone. The spill made its way past these shores, impacting Prince Albert's drinking water. Officials say there's now a separate pipe at its intake plant that detects contaminants.
It goes straight into our lab at the water treatment plant, and we've got some new highly technical equipment which can measure hydrocarbons.
The city manager says there's similar technology at 2 other points in the water collection process. It's all part of an ongoing response to a situation the mayor says he never thought city staff would have to deal with.
There was no going to the pulling a manual off the shelf and going to page 5, and we had all the answers. They were actually making that manual as we went along.
Dion says he's looking forward to hearing proposals around pipeline monitoring and regulation when the province releases its expected incident report early next year. Joel Senek, Global News.
Well, Gerard, winter is officially here. A little frosty in the mornings now. Got to scrape the old windshield.
Yeah, you got to do some of that.
In the morning. How long? I guess how long are we going to see some of these colder temperatures heading into the overnight hours?
Well, hear the question you're asking.
I'm all right. I know. How long till spring, Gerard?
This is the new normal. Like everybody's been saying, we're in for a classic Canadian winter on the prairies.
A classic
Canadian
winter on the prairies.
Lots of ice fishing, lots of skiing and skating and
okay. Well, maybe me and you go ice fishing one of these times. How about that, Gerard? Me and you go out there.
I'll polish up my. Let's look at some of the details of the day. And -4 that feels like -9 with the wind kicking in south and southeast at about 12 kilometers per hour, 98% the relative humidity, misty conditions. We've had some light flurry activity as well in the last hour, -2 in Cold Lake and area. Some of the warmer air aloft is able to mix down there, and -4 in the Battlefords. The radar satellite showing that there has been some clearing off to the southwest, but not really getting into our area. As we get a closer look at it, maybe some areas closer to Wainwright and Vegreville have seen some hints of it during the course of the day, but not really too much of it making its way into Saskatchewan proper. Temperatures around the region, patches of -4 from Vegreville through Provost and up into Vermilion, up to St. Walburg, and then some of that warmer air mixing in the lakeland between those -3s in St. Paul, Bonnyville, and -2 there as well in Cold Lake proper. And further north, Uranium City, -12, -13 in Fort Chippewa, and -14 in High Level. So this is the new normal, -4, except that which is actually close to the normals for this time of the year. We'll have some more details. The real thing, we want to see some sunshine here on this. It'll make folks a little happier. Share some of those details later in the show.
Thank you, Gerard. Coming up, Newcap's Gift of Christmas campaign is back. We'll have the details and how to donate after this. Well, the Jason Kenney campaign has been fined $5,000 after it broke the rules at a delegate selection meeting in Edmonton last week. The vote will have to be held again. As Provincial Affairs reporter Tom Vernon explains, the PC party hopes this sends a message. Those seeking to lead the party must follow the rules.
This is how leadership races go. When the contenders are together for photo ops, it's all smiles. But on the campaign trail, it's about getting votes.
There's only so much tolerance for someone not respecting the rules.
And already the leading candidate, Jason Kenney, has run afoul of the rules.
When we started this race, all of the candidates signed a document that said that they were going to follow the rules as written, and that if they don't, that the party would act. And that's what's happened here today, and that's what we'll do in the future.
At issue is the delegate selection meeting in Edmonton-Ellerslie. The rules of the race state campaigns aren't allowed in or near where the meetings are being held. The Kenney campaign hosted a hospitality room in the same building, just 15 steps away. And Jason Kenney himself popped into the building before the meeting began.
No other candidate had a problem with understanding what that meant at all, and we never were ever asked at any point to clarify it by the other candidates.
The Kenney campaign argues the rules are vague. It seeks clarification, and in a statement said local supporters of our campaign organized a get-together prior to the beginning of the delegate selection meeting for those running to support the Unite Alberta campaign. Adding Jason Kenney simply intended to drop by this event briefly to thank those running in support of his candidacy and was at no point going to attend the delegate selection meeting.
It's a clear violation of the rules.
But Dwayne Brett isn't sure the Kenney campaign is worried about it or what it means for the PC party as a whole.
I'm not sure what damage it can do to the PC brand, given that his entire campaign is about ending the party.
The leadership committee is very concerned about the PC brand and is taking this very seriously.
That's why the party is stepping in and being very strict on this. There are rules for a reason. We lost on May 5th, 2015 because people did not trust us. They perceived us as arrogant and that we would do anything for power.
And the party is doing what it can to get the race back on track. Tom Vernon, Global News.
Well, the annual Gift of Christmas campaign is underway. Once again, Newcap Broadcasting is collecting gift donations for kids who might not otherwise get a Christmas present. Demand is expected to be high this year, and gifts should be donated unwrapped.
We like them unwrapped so that we can tell whether they're for a boy or girl and what age group to place those in. And like I say, we have need for everything this year, every different age group.
Price says the campaign makes a big difference for struggling families.
I can see when I go to someone's house the joy that's on their face because they know they're going to be able to give their kids something for Christmas. So just to see what stress is taken off the parents is just huge for Christmas. And everybody should be able to celebrate Christmas, right?
To find out where to donate, visit the Real Country website or drop it off here at Newcap Television until December 9th. Families can apply to receive gifts at the Salvation Army. Well, a cat and a rabbit are the two animals featured for adoption in this week's Pet Project. Candy is a 2-year-old tortoiseshell cat, and Snowdrop is a 4-year-old rabbit. Here's John from the SPCA.
Sometimes a name just comes naturally, like Candy, a 2-year-old tortoiseshell cat. Candy is one sweet feline that will melt your heart like chocolate the minute you meet her. Not only is Candy a beautiful girl, but she has the most adorable personality. She is as playful as a kitten and as curious as can be. Candy loves nothing more than being in front of her kennel waiting for pets. She'll just rub against the bars and purr gently until someone takes her out. She just loves to play with toys, particularly toy mice. Candy's energy seems endless. However, once she's had enough of running around, Candy is perfectly content to curl up on the couch and take a long nap. Candy's a very special girl who will warm your heart on even the coldest of days. Be sure to stop by the SPCA and meet Candy today. Now that winter has arrived, the word snow usually strikes fear in our hearts. But once you meet Snowdrop, a 4-year-old lion-held rabbit, you'll realize that all snow isn't bad. This adorable rabbit is as cute as can be. Snowdrop is a very intelligent rabbit who loves to explore her surroundings. She doesn't want to be left in a cage all day. Rather, she'd like to spend her days in a large exercise pen filled with tons of Timothy hay, her favorite fruits and vegetables, and a toy or two. When she's not playing and exploring, then she likes to stretch out in her cage for a quick nap. Although a little shy around people at first, once she gets to know you, you'll start to see her loving personality shine. Snowdrop is currently our longest resident and would love nothing more than to spend this holiday season with a loving family. So don't delay. Visit the SPCA and meet Snowdrop today.
Pet Project is brought to you by Quick Pick Waste Disposal, Lloydminster's #1 waste and recycling hauler. Quick Pick is waste collection you can depend on.
Well, coming up, putting a cap on electricity. Alberta's NDP government is limiting how much companies can charge users for power. Details next.
Stocks and oil prices are brought to you by Spectrum Restoration DKI. Across the street, across the Midwest, restoring confidence. Spectrum Restoration DKI.
The NDP government is stepping up control over the province's energy sector. Starting next year, the New Democrats will limit how much companies can charge Albertans for electricity. Right now, Alberta is seeing historically low energy prices, and the province says that's not going to last, so this measure is intended to protect Albertans once the prices go up. Some things that have driven prices up in the past were a failed generator, even the polar vortex. The government says phasing out coal could have an impact on electricity prices in Alberta, and that the cap will protect consumers from volatility in the market.
Well, what this does is this is part of a plan that will move Alberta back towards the mainstream of electricity production, distribution, and sales in North America. And in so doing, it will provide greater stability in prices for consumers.
Should the supply costs exceed the government's set price, the province says it would be willing to use carbon levy dollars to make up the difference. As a last resort, though, the cap is going to be set at 6.8 cents per kilowatt, so for the average Albertan, that's about $40 a month for their power. Well, 51% of Alberta's electricity is generated by coal-fired power plants. On Monday, our Minister of Environment reacted to the announcement from the federal government on the phase-out of coal, saying the coal reduction transition is already underway in Alberta as a way to protect the health of its residents.
We know that coal-fired emissions cost us approximately $300 million in healthcare costs every year. And so we have taken the decisions we have based on both our environmental sustainability and responsibility, but of course also protecting the health of Albertans.
Well, the federal government wants 90% of Canada's electricity to come from sustainable sources by 2030. Well, Saskatchewan's government is also chiming in on the coal issue this week. They say the federal move to shut down coal-fired power plants will come at a cost to Saskatchewan taxpayers. Wayne Mantika with more.
Saskatchewan is Canada's biggest polluter per capita. It's because the province gets 1/3 of its electricity from coal-fired power plants, which are huge emitters of greenhouse gases. The province is one of 4 that still burn coal, and the federal government says it must be phased out by 2030.
This is the equivalent of taking 1.3 million cars off the road.
The phase-out comes as no surprise, but is 12 years sooner than a deadline set by the former Conservative government.
The cost of replacing the coal-fired electrical generation in the province of Saskatchewan is $3.5 billion, and so that's substantial.
Saskatchewan has a 300-year supply of coal remaining. It is still hoping for an agreement that would allow for some use of coal, offset by a greater percentage of wind and solar power.
An equivalency agreement that will allow us to recognize a number of things that will reduce the impact of the transition that we're undertaking.
The NDP say Saskatchewan's record in dealing with climate change forced Ottawa's hand.
Well, really, most of those coal mines have been set up to be phased out by 2030 anyway, so it's not really a huge announcement in that sense.
Outside the legislative building, demonstrators opposed to a pipeline voiced support for the phase-out of coal.
Brad Wall is, I think, increasingly getting pressured from groups across Canada. People are realizing that he's one of the biggest obstacles to any action on climate justice.
What bothers Saskatchewan the most is that it keeps getting caught by surprise. First with the carbon tax, and now the earlier than expected phase-out of coal. It should make for heated discussion when First Ministers meet with the Prime Minister next month. Wayne Mantika, CTV News, Regina.
Sports is brought to you by
Nissan Lloydminster, Titan XD. Come test drive the all-new Titan today. Nissan Lloydminster, your Titan excellence dealer.
Well, it's a very long hockey season, time that players are away from home and their families. In this week's Beyond the Boards, Drew Miller takes a look at how the Bobcats brought a little bit of home to the game.
It was a special weekend for the Bobcats as parents of each player came to Lloydminster to watch their kid play, some coming from as far as Ontario.
I told the boys, you know, you get to play in front of mom and dad like you always did when you were young, right? And
It was a great opportunity, and I thought the boys had a little bit of step in their skate today.
Zach Kaiser is from Orangeville, Ontario, and his parents flew in to watch their first live Bobcat hockey game.
It's awesome just to get a glimpse of what his life is like here and who he's hanging out with and the people he's getting to know and the things that he's doing and just seeing what makes him happy.
They haven't seen me, I think it's like almost 3 months now that I've seen them last. They haven't seen me play in an actual game for, I don't know, almost half a year now, just from last year. And it's nice that they're always able to make it down. Being at school last year as well, it's hard for them to make and come and watch a game. And I was happy I was able to put up some points and have a good game tonight for them.
Each parent lined up at center ice to receive a small gift from their son, something that Carrie and Cam, Jameson Ree's parents, did not know was happening.
It's probably one of the most special moments that I've had as a parent, as a hockey parent. It's such a nice thing for the team to do.
And to be at ice level and then to have the smiling faces and just the love of the players with their family, it was really powerful. And of course, for him to come and he's going to hug Mom, obviously, but for him to hug Dad's always a bonus. I'm going to always take a hug from him.
The Bobcats came away with the victory, which proves all they needed was a little taste of home. Drew Miller, Newcap Sports.
Beyond the Boards is brought to you by City Center Auto Body. In business since 1983 with 2 locations to serve you better. They can fix anything.
Well, that is your first look at sports. Gerard Lampow has your weather details when we come back.
This segment is brought to you by Agland.
If time is infinite, why is there never enough of it? A John Deere One Family tractor with Quick Park lets you attach and go. iMatch Quick Hitch gives you more time for what you love.
Well, all this talk about NAFTA, cross-border trade and agriculture, it's made for some frayed nerves. But Bob Simpson found a friend south of the border that says there's no need to worry.
And I think he's going to be very aggressive in those first 100 days with what he thinks he can do.
Brett Stewart says U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is threatening to adopt radical protectionist policies. The Denver-based market analyst told a Saskatchewan Pork Industry Forum that Trump has vowed to repeal or alter the 1994 three-nation North American Free Trade Agreement. It allows products like pork, beef, and chicken to flow across the borders of the three nations to where the market needs it.
We'll just have to watch. There's going to be a lot of concern and fear about this, but the bottom line is this trade's going to continue and hopefully will not be massively impacted.
Stewart says even if NAFTA were torn up, trade between Canada and the U.S. could still flow freely by way of the terms of the free trade agreement they negotiated in 1987. He says a far greater concern for the Canadian and U.S. swine industries is the impending glut of pork on world markets. China, the world's largest pork-consuming nation, has traditionally been a major importer of the meat. But China has vastly increased domestic hog production, leaving its suppliers in a lurch.
And here's 750,000 tons of EU pork that's got to go somewhere. And where's it going to go? It's going to go into Japan, it's going to go into Korea, it's going to go into all of these key markets that the U.S. and Canada export into. This is a major, major concern looking into 2017.
Stewart says lower market prices for pork will likely carry through much of 2017. But he says there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
The fortunate standing of being a farmer anywhere in the world today is that we're adding 78 million people a year to the planet. And so that tells you if you're in food production anywhere on earth, you have a future. And market's correct.
The trick will be for Canadian pork producers and processors to be ready with product so they can cash in on the next market upswing in the world. Bob Simpson, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Well, that's all for your agriculture news. Coming up, aging fighters. The Canadian government has announced its plan to replace the CF-18 fighter jets.
Ag and commodity prices are brought to you by City Center Auto Body. They're an authorized SGI Elite Auto Body shop and can work directly with the insurance company on your behalf.
Well, the Canadian government has announced its plan to replace the country's aging CF-18 fighter jets. A competition will be held to replace the CF-18 fleet. In the meantime, the government says it will explore the acquisition of 18 Boeing-made Super Hornet jets on an interim basis to fill a capability gap in the country's air defenses. During last year's election campaign, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised not to purchase Lockheed Martin's F-35 stealth fighter, which was the choice of the previous Conservative government. Well, taking a look at governance south of the border, it appears Donald Trump is having a change of heart and will no longer press charges against his rival Hillary Clinton. The president-elect is making the steep transition from candidate to president, trying to smooth relationships after his toxic campaign. CTV's Richard Madden reports.
A mix of cheers and jeers as Donald Trump leaves the New York Times, a paper he routinely trashed for unfair coverage during the campaign. It's all part of a transition from campaign rhetoric to the realities of governing. Trump wants to improve relations with the media, and now his spokesperson says Trump will no longer press charges against Hillary Clinton.
I think Hillary Clinton still has to face the fact that a majority of Americans don't find her to be honest or trustworthy, but if Donald Trump can help her heal, then perhaps that's a good thing.
It's a major reversal. With chance of lock her up at his rallies, Trump vowed to throw Clinton in jail over her missing emails.
If I win, we're going to appoint a special prosecutor.
But that was then.
Things come up, you say a lot of things, even some bad things might happen, and then you can sort of put it behind you in order to unite the nation.
Our transition team is working very smoothly.
Trump's legislative priorities were outlined yesterday, including withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership on day one. The global free trade deal endorsed by Canada is now dead in the water.
The TPP agreement, as currently structured and finalized, can only come into force if it is ratified by the United States, but that's not news.
And Trump also says he may walk away from a global climate change accord, Canada among the many countries that signed it. He tells the New York Times he's looking at it very closely, but is keeping an open mind. Richard Madden, CTV News, Washington.
Well, a major influence during the U.S. election was fake news sweeping social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Today's youth may be digitally savvy, but a new study is suggesting that many are also quite gullible when it comes to distinguishing between real and fake news. Researchers from Stanford University surveyed almost 8,000 students from middle school to college. They found over 80% of preteens can't tell the difference between a news story and an ad with a sponsored content label. They also found that many students judge the credibility of a story based on the size of the photo attached. The study is the largest one conducted on how teens evaluate information online. Well, it's been a politically turbulent year. Now the growing wave of nationalism is taking hold of Europe. France is holding its presidential primaries this week. Nicolas Sarkozy, the former socialist president, has already been knocked out, and that's giving strength to the right. And as Jeff Semple reports, the French, like many of their European neighbors, are poised for a political earthquake.
The packed polling stations reflect the significance of France's seismic shift. For the first time, the French public are electing their party's candidates, adopting the U.S. primary system, resulting in an American-style surprise. A humiliated Nicolas Sarkozy, the former French president, knocked out of the running for his old job by his former prime minister, François Fillon. We proved the pollsters wrong, Fillon said. A powerful energy has been unleashed. With several primary rounds still to come, it looks likely the traditionally socialist country will choose between Fillon on the right and Marine Le Pen on the far right. The Front National leader preaches populist, close-the-borders nationalism and Frexit, a French exit from the European Union. Her party is badly trailing in the polls, but after Brexit and Trump, political analysts say they've seen this movie before.
We were wrong twice. We don't want to be wrong a third time.
France is far from the only European country where a nationalist party is poised to take power. In less than 2 weeks, Austrians go to the polls in an election that could see Norbert Hofer become president. Described as a soft-spoken Donald Trump, he promotes gun ownership as protection from migrants. That same day, Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi is expected to lose a referendum and resign, sparking an election with an anti-establishment party polling in second place. Then in March, it's the Netherlands' turn, where heavy favorite Geert Wilders has vowed to close mosques and ban the Quran. And then there's Germany, where Chancellor Angela Merkel just announced plans to run for a fourth term. Internationally, our values and interests, our way of life are under attack, she said. Merkel brushed off suggestions that she's now Europe's de facto defender of the liberal world order. I'm honored, but at the same time I find it almost bizarre, she said. To fix the world's problems, we must all work together. But on this continent, she may soon find herself very much alone. Jeff Semple, Global News, London.
Well, coming up in sports, the PWM Steelers are trying to fight off a plateau in their season with eyes on the finals.
Newcap Sports is brought to you by RecTech Power Products. Highway 16 West Lloydminster, your local BRP dealer.
Well, the PWM Steelers Midget AAA girls team has plateaued after an electric start to the season, but their coaching staff is optimistic they can get back to their winning ways. Bailey Nitty has more.
The Steelers have been consistently putting in a solid effort during practices and games. Coach Cashel says the tenacity they bring to the ice is the team's best quality.
We have a great group of girls that show up every day and they work their butts off. So I think the standings show how the season's going, but there's lots of work ahead of us, and it's always going to be a process every day to make sure everybody shows up.
The girls have undeniable chemistry and have supported each other through the highs and lows. Climbing the standings is the main goal for the Steelers, but sticking together as a team is the first step to getting there.
When I first came in here, it was like walking into a room with 30 new friends. The girls are awesome. Everyone's so close, and you miss home sometimes, but there's a few of us that are away from home now, so we can lean on each other, and it's always good to have that support.
Having a tight-knit group of girls has helped them to sit third in the Central Division standings this season with an 8-5-1 record. They have gotten better from previous seasons, but there is room for improvement.
I'm expecting we're going to be high in standings. We're going to boost up and we're going to start playing better again.
Every team in the Alberta Female Hockey League makes playoffs, so the main goal for the Steelers is to make the SO Cup. Bailey Nitty, Newcap Sports.
Well, that's all the time we have in sports. We'll have more Newcap news and weather after the break.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Dr. Poxon. Complete pair of glasses starting as low as $79. Always custom fit with no hidden fees. Dr. Poxon, your optometrist for your busy life.
Well, Gerard, I know earlier we were talking about skiing.
Yeah.
You mean the cross-country variety? It's pretty
flat
around here.
You can go out into Saskatchewan there, and there's also Mount Joy not too far away from here.
Might have to take you up on your offer.
We can try that.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, we did a toboggan challenge this past winter here.
Okay.
We won a trophy for it too.
Okay, well, I'm in.
We have to defend it.
Got to defend the title.
Let's look at the details here before we get carried away. -4 does feel like -10. Southeast, the winds at 17 kilometers per hour there. Misty conditions, overcast, dreary looking all day. Temperatures in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan in this hour, 0 in Lethbridge, -3 in Calgary. See a clear evening there already. So there is that clearing that we spoke about out to the southwest. -2 in Regina, and we told you light freezing drizzle still persisting there. -3 and overcast in Saskatoon, similar to what we're seeing here. To the north, minus 11 in Uranium City there. Nothing further needs to be added to that. Minus 12 there in high level. So balance that off. I think we'll take our minus 4 and just be comfortable with that with an extra sweater as compared to that minus 12 up there. And once the wind blows on that, you're feeling like minus 20 already. So minus 3 in the Lakeland region and minus 4 in the Battleford's overcast conditions. On the overnights towards morning, still we're seeing some 30% chance of flurry activity around the region. Could settle for minus 5s, minus 6 with the winds. If they do pick up, might be a little cooler with the wind chill attached to that. This morning, the wind chills were around the minus 8, minus 10 mark around the region there. So it did have some chill for your morning commute to get the youngsters organized. We'll aim for minus 2, minus 3 as it goes along, again with a 30% chance of seeing some flurry activity. And if one of the heavier bands catches up with us, we might see some more, but nothing too outrageous. We're really eyeing the weekend and particularly the shift in the wind from the south and southeast to the northwest. That'll be one of the telling factors on the weekend, and if that does materialize, we might see that couple centimeters come on through there. That's a look at the next 7 days.
Well, the holiday season is a time to give. According to a new study, Canadians will donate billions of dollars to charities this Christmas, and that's great. But there are always those who question how transparent charities are. Global's Stu Gooden has more on what people should consider when making a donation.
I hear bad stuff about charities, some charities. So I tend to want to investigate the charities I donate to now.
It's a common concern. Most people don't know what happens to their money when they donate to a charity.
I've been hearing a lot of things that certain charities don't even give their money out to the people that they're supposed to be doing.
According to a survey by Imagine Canada, 47% of people in Saskatchewan think that charities are open and transparent. Only 31% are highly trusting of charities. 30% express low trust.
And so it's clear that Canadians want to know more about charitable organizations, and that through knowing more, their trust and confidence grows.
This sociologist says mistrust can come from false expectations with a donation.
They want the money to go so much to a specific thing, but it's actually not really where the money is needed.
Canadians are expected to donate $5 billion to charities this holiday season, but do they know exactly what they're donating to? The study says 59% of people from Saskatchewan are only somewhat familiar with what charities actually do.
We'd like to see that move more into a more familiar range where, as a result of good marketing and communications, hearing data, hearing the stories, and impact evaluation reports, they have more confidence in those organizations.
I tend to want to investigate where I'm sending my money to, because I don't want it to end up somewhere else.
Stu Gooden, Global News.
When you stay with us, we'll have some more fun stuff after the break. Well, Gerard, we got just one little quick one here before we say goodbye tonight. A zoo in Atlanta is inviting the public to vote on their favorite names for a new pair of panda cubs. The cuddly twins are only a couple of months old. The zoo is inviting panda fans to go online to their website and choose from a list of names. The 7 set of names all have special connections to the cubs or their parents. The giant panda girls are going to be named on their 100th day of life in accordance with Chinese tradition. What do you think, Gerard? What would you name either of those cubs?
You told me the criteria there. I was going to call one Zeus, and then you said that they're female.
Yeah. I guess that's true. So that's a great name, actually. Why not? Zeus.
I wonder if there's a female version of that. There probably is.
There probably is, but I'm not very schooled in that topic. But that's all the time we have for this evening. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.